Greetings, traveler.
Welcome to my patch review. We're going to be talking about the buddy patch that has been announced. Originally, the buddy meter was a mechanic that would fill up as you did well in combat, but it was super frustrating because if your matchups were bad, you would just get all kinds of frustrating outcomes where you would get your buddy one turn too late, and that would be horrible. They changed that mechanic the second time around, and now you just pay money. Even if you get unlucky, you can still choose, okay, let me just pay more money and still get my buddy, and my whole game isn't ruined. Here you see the initial cost. If you win your round, your buddy will become 3 gold cheaper. If you win or you tie, it's 3. If you lose, it'll be 2 gold. And then obviously as we go up the tiers, they will become more expensive to play. You can press the button again and you'll get 2 buddies this time. So you can golden your buddy if you keep your original one. All right, so we're gonna dive into all the new buddies. The amount of heroes that has been released since the last buddy meta is quite high. Because it's now going to be buddy meta, they've updated all these heroes to give them a buddy. Captain Hogger gets a tier 5 pirate buddy that says after you buy a pirate, gain 1/1 and then add a pirate to the tavern. This feels way too fair and too slow for my recollection of what buddy meta was like. Buddy meta is generally very high pace, very fast, and if I have to wait for a tier 5 buddy and then my whole reward is I get an extra pirate in the shop and I get like basically a Peggy effect on my guy, that's not worth a tier 5 buddy to me at all. I just have so many memories of buddy meta being absolutely bonkers, ridiculous, that this doesn't cut it for me. Inga the Iron Hymn. So she gets a Solemn Serenader. It's a tier 3 buddy that gives you stats every time you use your hero power. Now this was really weird because I looked at this and this didn't look that good at first glance, but then I read it again. It says after you use your hero power on a minion, not a different minion. You can pump this guy to make him bigger. That's kind of silly, right? So essentially what you just do with this guy is you just pump him the whole time. And then you have a huge buddy that you can use to make other cards huge. So this is very likely too much stuff for just the tier 3 buddy. You just get so much like, hey, here you get scaling. It doesn't cost you any gold. You're kind of strong. You can also use other buffs on this. Intuitively, this feels a bit, well, maybe not too good, but just good. Right? Compared to the Hogger buddy, I can already see some instant abuse possible with this thing. All right, then we have Voon with Akali the Rock Rhino. At the end of every 2 turns, get a plain copy of the leftmost minion in your hand, and Voon's hero power is at the end of every 3 turns, do the same thing. The whole point here is that you can make triples super easily. So this also seems good. So for buddy meta, I would say your main objective is to just pop off and go super hard on creating a bonkers board. This is actually going to catch a lot of people off guard if they haven't played buddy meta before. They're going to create a board that they feel is totally good, and it's so trash because it's buddy meta. So the quality of what your board should look like by turn 10, for instance, is like it's so much higher in buddy meta than what it is normally in a vanilla meta that we are in right now. When you give players additional resources, the boards get bigger faster. So you really have to shoot for the moon. And in a meta like that, having something that produces triples is super good because you can use this to make a golden Bran, or you can do golden Tethys, or anything to really just go to the moon. This to me feels much more in line with buddy meta than something like this, whereas this pumping out triples seems much better. And then obviously Drukhari, right? Drukhari means that you just get so many. Imagine if you have a golden Akali at the end of every turn, get a copy from the leftmost card, and then you have Drukhari. So 2 copies from the leftmost card every turn. When you're done producing triples, you can just hold something like a Primal Fin or a Panda on the left hand side, and then you get 2 of those every turn. All right, then next up we have Thorim, Stormlord. At the end of your turn, transform the minion to the left of this to a tier higher. This, again, doesn't seem that good at first glance, but then doing the math and thinking about what matters in buddy meta, I still think it's good because you're able to get this fairly early because it's a tier 3 buddy. You'll get this on turn 4, right? You start upgrading, and if you get a 7-drop early, then you're able to get something like Varian, and then sell the Varian, and then get a lot of tempo. You can get Morg, you can get Zorgira. For a buddy meta, something that gives you an opportunity to get outrageous value early on is good. It just gives you a way to spike early, which is something you really want in a buddy meta. Talking about spiking early, this is stupid good. At the start of your turn, roll a 6-sided die, discover a tavern spell of that tier. So essentially what you're going to do with Snake Eyes is you're going to use her hero power to get this buddy. I think Snake Eyes can get this on turn 4 as well. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we're going to just hero power on turn 1 with Snake Eyes and hope you don't roll a 5 or a 6, and you just get to use the hero power again quickly. Or if you just hold it and you just make sure that you can pop off. Now the problem is you can low roll on the turn you want this. So, but again, right, it is Snake Eyes. You're going to have some bad Snake Eyes games because the dice doesn't work with you. But on average, right, you're going to get money and you're going to be able to buy this. This just embodies buddy meta. This gives you extra resources early in the game. And that's very, very, very good because the boards are going to get out of control so quickly that you really need to get extra resources early, extra money, extra minions, right? And in this case, spells can provide both. Discover a tavern spell of that tier. That means that you can discover a tier 6 spell or a tier 5 spell while you're still on tier 4. Let's say you get this on turn 4. So turn 5, you level to tier 3. On turn 5, this rolls a 5. So you now get to discover a tier 5 spell. Let's say there's Beanstalk in there. You just pop the Beanstalk and it's like, oh, I now have a Tethys on turn 5. And it's a mech, right? So it can get moduled, it can get a Quartertron. So this is definitely the best buddy we've seen so far, right? In this set of buddies we're reviewing. Obviously, I still need to play with them, so I could always be wrong. But this looks phenomenal. This is also really good. So this is a tier 5 buddy instead of tier 4. So that does mean that there's no way you're getting this on turn 4. It's a 9/9, so the tempo is okay for putting it on the board. And then the text is, after you buy a minion, get a random tavern spell from the same tier, 9 left. So that means the first 9 minions you buy give you a tavern spell of the same tier. And this is exactly what you want. This is what I mean with front loading. It gives you all the value up front and then it doesn't do anything later on. But it doesn't really have to do anything later on because once you have a golden brand, it doesn't matter what your buddy does, right? You're infinite. It's good. You have all the money you need. You're just going to pop off. Once you have all the Tethys and you have all the money you need, it's fine. You don't need it. Once you have the golden wraith, etc., etc., etc. What you want is resources early on to get faster to the point where you no longer need additional resources. And that's exactly what a card like this does. It's like, hey, here's all the value right now. I kind of suck later on, but then you just sell me and it doesn't matter anymore. It's also called the 9 Frogs, which is so funny, right? The artwork is fantastic. It's like a staff, 9 frogs jammed in there. Yeah, I love it. So when you triple this, it'll reset most likely. And then you'll get 2 tavern spells every time you buy a minion. But even if you end up selling this before you hero power again, you just get 2 more and you just play the other 2. I would say this and the Snake Eyes buddy for now is definitely the best ones that we've seen. Then Reliquary Attendant is Tathalon's buddy. This says once per turn after you cast a tavern spell, get a new copy of it. I would say it's definitely not on par with the 2 we've just seen, but it's fine. It's additional resources. And this is actually a buddy that you can keep around to golden. And then once it is golden and you're on tier 5, you can do something like cast a Beanstalk, get 2 more Beanstalks. Cast a Golden Touch, get 2 more Golden Touches. Super good, right? Super good later on. So if you can just survive and get by when it's a regular version and then golden it, then there's a lot. Like this guy is the opposite of the 9 Frogs. This guy starts slower, but has consistent value throughout the entire game. Because it's so much value, it's actually pretty good. And then when you have a golden Reliquary Attendant, you just play 1 Beanstalk, get 2 more, and then hold 1. So then next turn, you just have a Beanstalk ready that you can just play again. And then as long as you still need 6 drops, you just always hold 1 Beanstalk, and then it's 2 6 drops per turn. So really nice. Nameless one, this is duo specific. This is bonkers. This is definitely going to have to be addressed, I think. Finley is the same way. This is Battlecry, get the buddy of your teammate's hero power. Finley is get the buddy of your hero power. And there's already so many ways that you can abuse a Finley buddy, where you have a Finley buddy next to a Rylak, next to a Murkai, you use Draconic, and you just get way too many friggin' buddies, right? You're going to be able to pass this to your teammate, and then your teammate's going to like break the game somehow. Or you just use it yourself, because you both have the same hero power, right? So it doesn't really matter who uses it. The assumption is, oh, I'll just pass this to my buddy, and then my buddy will play this, and my buddy will get a Faceless buddy. But I'm pretty sure that's not how it's going to work. I think the moment you play Faceless one, your hero power is your teammate's hero power. So you'll only have 1 Faceless one, and it'll just give you your buddy's hero power. The chance for abuse is so high here in duos. Let's see what happens. Because passing buddies back and forth, just like good Battlecry buddies, you're just going to use the portal, send it back to your teammate, it's back in their hands, now they can play it again, they have a brand, they get 2 more, and it's just disgusting. Then you have Cho and Gaul. This is half is the mighty and half is the wise. They're both tier 4 and they both have a similar effect. They discover a minion of their tier and then there's 50% chance to pass it at the start of the turn. This is probably going to be some kind of strategy where the half is stays on tier 3 and the half is the mighty stays on tier 3 and the wise goes to tier 5. because then on tier 5 you get to discover Beanstalk, Golden Touch, right, what we talked about, and on tier 3 you get to farm Azurites, which is a pretty good strategy in duos. So I'm pretty sure that's the initial strategy, at least, that people are going to use in duos is pick Cho'Gall, the Mighty stays on tier 3, the Wise goes to 5, you power level, you start pulling high tier spells early in the game. Madame Goya is once per turn after you pass a minion, get a playing copy of it. Also seems really good. Works with the hero power, and even if it's not just the hero power, your teammate can pass something to you and then you pass it back and you get a copy of it. So you can farm Golden Brand or something like this super easily. Seems good, definitely. Then Gloopling, I honestly don't really play enough duos to know if this is gonna hit at the right time. The effect is obviously great. It's just gonna be a tier 5, so I don't know if duos is too fast paced to be able to get to do this. So this is one where I'm just gonna say I don't really play enough duos right now to know if this is too slow or if it's great. That was all the buddies that didn't exist yet. These are all the buddies that already existed, but the updated version. After you buy a minion, gain its stats. That looks really good. The main problem with this is going to be, how do I survive until the point where this is actually going to pop off? But we all know from playing with Shelemental that there is some crazy abuse you can do with the shop if you can buff the shop. The ceiling is super high here to get huge stats. The one issue is, are you going to survive long enough on a Saurfang to set that up? Probably, right? The fact that it's a 2/2 means that they probably tested it at a different stat line and they're like, this is a little too good, let's just make it really small. If you can survive long enough to pop off, it's gonna be so good. Also, in duos, there is like an instant wombo combo. So if you have a Janda's buddy, which I'm assuming they're going to ban either really fast or it's going to be banned before it even hits, you pretty much instantly win. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pass the Saurfang buddy to Janda's. Janda's is then going to switch her biggest minion into the shop and buy it over and over again so that the Saurfang grows. And then when the Saurfang hits enough money to cash in the golden buddy, Janice is going to get one of the buddies, not both. So now she has 2. And then she'll just swap one buddy into the shop, buy that one. That other buddy now gains all the stats. So you play that and then you just leapfrog them. And you really literally go like 500, 1,000, 2,000. You just double every time. Pretty disgusting. And then for solos, obviously less broken, but still, the potential is super high. So anytime you have a card with so much potential, you have to give it respect. So Lucifron is now buffed. It's no longer trigger twice, it's trigger an extra time. So that means that it stacks with Drukhari instead of just being the same as Drukhari. Now, unfortunately, you would have to play Rag. So it's bad. It's not like quests where 20 armor is good and you get to get a better quest. You still have to play Rag, so you have no hero power. I think, obviously, you know, the lower MMR you go with this, the better it becomes. And at 4K, people are much worse at building stats than at 12K. But at high MMR, this is not pickable, unfortunately. It's not really a hero power you could play. So my instinct here is that this is not really good, for me at least. It's, and for most high-level players. Arana is the exact opposite. Her buddy was adjusted so that it now triggers on spells as well. It says buy a card instead of buy a minion. Essentially, this card is just Wraith, but for everything. Anytime you buy a card, your next refresh costs 0. And especially once this becomes golden, and it's a tier 3 buddy, so it's not that hard to golden, your next 2 refreshes cost 0. So that means that you only have to buy 1 card every 2 shops. So you can roll like crazy. If you roll like crazy, you just have a much higher chance to go infinite. You can buy all these super cheap cards that allow you to roll like crazy. And if you can roll like crazy, you can make Golden Brand, you can make something like, you can have Elise with this thing, right? And you can just farm 6 drops like crazy and just get all the Tethys, the Grey Mains and all that. So probably really good with Moon Eater and Bram. And then you're just gonna go infinite like crazy, man. This is one of those cards that is super scary because it doesn't really make you stronger until you really just hit. So there is a very high chance that you pick a Rana and you just die. If you survive, you go infinite. So the chance that you get a first place after you survive goes very high. 1-cost spells are effectively free. If you were going to have to pay 1 gold to roll anyway, then you may as well buy super high potential, but will get you killed if you can't pop off fast enough. Alex got a huge rework. So her hero power is now, at the start of your turn, discover a dragon. Unlocks at tier 4. That's a big deal. She no longer is, oh, when I go to 5, pull 2 dragons. This is now every turn you get a dragon. That helps her a lot to play the tier 4/tier 5 dragon build. She's basically just Ysera now, but better. You're going to just force dragons and sit on tier 4, sit on tier 5 and play that build. And then the buddy is the same thing, right? It's not horrible, but it's so boring. Battlecry and start of combat, give your other minions 2/2. Cool. Thanks. Really boring compared to what the old buddy did. Battlecry, get a dragon of your tier, and then you would just trigger it again and again and farm Caligoses and pop off. So Zephrys was reworked, but only a little bit. When you play Zephrys now, it doesn't exclude your golden minions. So before, if you had, say, a golden Bran on your board, the Bran would not be in the discovery pool, but they've changed that. And I'm pretty sure the reason is that it was very easy to play Pyrus and Deathscale and just trigger the Zephrys buddy and then get another Deathscale, plus whatever else you wanted to copy. So it was super easy to put yourself in a position where you could go infinite and then continue to copy whatever you wanted to copy. As we saw in the Jeep game we reviewed, just get as many Ticketus buddies as you want. They haven't exactly made it impossible to do that. They've just made it really freaking annoying. Now, in duos, this will be disgusting because it's much less of a nightmare. So you have a Bran, you have a Zephrys buddy, and you have a Deathscale. You're only copying the Deathscale and the Bran. So you do that one time. So you get one Bran, you get one Deathscale. Then all you got to do is get one minion from your teammate that he wants to get copied infinitely, because you now have the Bran pair that's taken care of. You have another Deathscale. You sell your Deathscale. You play your Deathscale. The Bran can be copied because it's a pair. The Zephrys buddy can be copied because that would be stupid. And you have a Rock in your hand. So now you just play the Deathscale trigger on the Zephrys. You'll get another Rock. You'll get another Deathscale. You pass one Rock into the portal. You get a gold for selling your Deathscale. So even passing in the portal is for free. So you're pretty much only limited by your APM, and you can make 5 golden Rocks in one turn for your teammate. And then he wins the game for you. Or he just holds him in his hand, and then next turn you get to get 5 golden Rocks too. I don't know how they're going to balance this. It's probably going to be banned in Naga Dragon lobbies, because being able to trigger this minion over and over is just, it's almost impossible to balance this to a point where good players aren't going to figure out a way to go infinite and create boards that shouldn't exist. All right, so going from something ultra exciting, ultra heavy APM into a very boring card. At the end of your turn, give your tier 3 minions +1/+2. That's a lot better, because the old version was a tier 4 that wouldn't buff itself, but it's freaking boring and it's not going to win you the game. So again, this kind of scales with MMR. The lower you're at, the better this is, because it's always +1/+2 and it'll buff itself and it's good tempo. But the higher up you go, the less +1/+2 is going to matter, because people are going to do something like build infinite Rocks. So yeah, it's very boring. It's whatever, right? You'll pick it if you have to, and then just try to not die and either get a really good combo going or just try the top 4. Queen Azshara. So Azshara hasn't really been in the game for a while, so I'm assuming that the transform effect has been bugging out or something, because she's not being offered. But this was a really fun buddy. The difference is that it has to be on your board instead of in the shop. So that's probably because I think this is just like a Shell Elemental safeguard or something, where otherwise it would just break the game, where you try to use Shell Elemental on the thing on your board or something. But this was actually pretty good when it was in. But this was because you had access to Greta and Atissa. What you would do is you would get to your golden buddy, but instead of making it golden, you would sell your initial buddy, so you just have 2. And then with those 2, you would play Greta, you would use the gun on your Atissa, and now your Imperial Defenders also are golden. That means that you get so many different spellcasts for your Atissa, where the triggers just go brrrr. These guys would just grow like crazy when you had a good setup. Now Wrangler isn't in the game, Atissa isn't in the game, Greta isn't in the game, so even if Azshara is going to be in the game, I don't think this is as good anymore. But it was cool in its day. Okay, then Sire Denathrius with the Shady Aristocrat. It's now going from a Battlecry to a Cell, which makes sense, because with Deathscale, with Rylak, with Murkai, with all these recycle effects, it's way too powerful to be able to farm infinite money. Essentially, the nerf here is that you can't recycle this, but it doesn't really do too much to the power level of this buddy, because this was a good buddy before. And essentially, the only downside is now that you can't roll for Bran first to play the next set of buddies. but it was pretty good to just get that gold infusion. This is an early buddy that you can pop to complete a quest and get 8 extra gold. You can use that gold to level faster, build a better board, so that's a good buddy. So especially with the Nathrius that has the ability to create a game-winning situation with this quest, getting additional gold to complete that quest faster, getting additional gold to survive, to be able to use a greedy quest, it's just very synergistic. So this is a really nice buddy. Right, and then the change to this is essentially like Friend of a Friend, which used to be Battle Cry, so it would stack with Bran, but now it no longer does that. The Terran rework is super interesting. So this went from a pure tempo thing that was after a friendly minion dies, give its neighbors 1/1, just kind of frustrating to play against, just high tempo, annoying. Now it's a tier 5 buddy, so it's quite more difficult to get. But the death rattle says, give this minion's maximum stats to another friendly minion. That's solid, very solid. Let's look at all the things you can do with this. The obvious one is you can use Kel'Thuzad to do this in the tavern phase and make permanent buffs. That's good. This is basically Nightbane, but only for 1 minion, but it also gives health. Very nice. Build this up through various means, and then once this is big enough, you just start targeting this with the KT. But also in the mid game, in order to not die, you'll have Titus on the board, right? Titus will give this twice as much tempo and twice as much permascaling if you do get your hands on a KT. It can buff the Titus because it says a friendly minion, so it's not friendly undead. And obviously your hero power is high tempo because you can just use it so that it dies immediately and gets the value. So this just all round looks like a solid pick where you can just take Terran and you can kind of just force this, and you're probably going to be alive long enough to do it because you'll have your hero power and then maybe you'll pick up a Macaw or something to pump. Looks really good. Yeah, and you could theoretically try to have 2 of them instead of golden it. The problem with trying to have 2 of them is that you'll have to sell your initial one, which you'll already have buffed. So I'm assuming that you're just gonna golden it, but maybe. Yeah, you can use Mummifier. It's kind of hard to do, but yeah. So essentially what you would have to do is you would have to use Mummifier and then Grave Robber the Mummifier, if we're talking early, right, when you don't have KT yet. And then after you have Grave Robber to Mummifier, this has Reborn. And then you Grave Robber the Shadowy Construct. So now you'll have 2 Shadowy Constructs without having to wait for your second hero power. And now you'll have 2 of them. And then those 2 can buff each other with KT. And then you kind of do like the thing where you have double Nightbane and the Nightbanes are buffing each other and you go crazy. Wow, yeah, that's probably what it's gonna be. You try to get a Reborn construct and then use a Grave Robber on it, make another construct, and now you're popping off. Yeah, that seems very dangerous because we all know what happens when there's 2 Nightbanes that are just going like buff, 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 buff. You just get like funny number damage where you have 6,000 damage, but it doesn't matter anymore because you're just one-shotting everything anyway. But this is stats. It's not just damage. It'll be health as well. So if we're talking, well, maybe not 6,000 because it's harder to buff this, but even if we're talking like 2,000, right? If you're just giving 2,000 health to your shit, that's too much, right? So yeah, wow, this is actually, there is so much potential to turn this into sort of an unbeatable board once you get access to a Kel'Thuzad. Absolutely will try this myself, and it's possible that they're going to have to change this one where it's just a little bit too powerful when it gets online. All right, Elder Tagawag. Start of combat, if you control 4 minions with different types, gain your minions' highest attack and health. So that can get very big in the late game, but it's slow. My instinct is it's bad. You have to control 4 minions with a different type, so it's difficult to set up. And yeah, you'll gain a lot of stats later on when those minions are big, but again, it's probably going to be better the lower MMR you go because it's just more numbers on your board and you can probably just build around this earlier. So, but I'm not a fan right now. Muckslinger, tier 5 for Shudderwalk. It's obviously got some potential because you're Shudderwalk. So it's Battle Cry, get another Battle Cry. But the issue is that once you're playing the game and you have your sort of idea of what you want to do, you would rather copy a different Battle Cry. You would rather copy Shell Whistler. You would rather copy Dracasath for triples. You would rather copy Primal Fin or something, right? Whereas just getting a bunch of random battle cries doesn't necessarily fit what you're trying to do. I'm currently not sold on it being a tier 5 buddy. Now, I don't think Shudderwalk is bad because of that, because Shudderwalk is very good. So I don't think this necessarily kills off Shudderwalk, but I don't think the buddy itself is fantastic. We'll have to see, but my instinct is that the buddy itself isn't like game breaking as a tier 5. I do agree that you can't really make it a 3 or a 4 because if you give this to Shudderwalk too early, Shudderwalk just fills his board way too easily by just hero powering this over and over, and you get value from having battle cries. So you can't really make this a cheap buddy, I think. But still, at the tier 5, I'm not sure if it hits hard enough, fast enough. Right, we talked about that. The Brand, the Death Scale, the Trigger Battle Cry. You can use that to get more value, but probably once you have all this, you would probably just prefer to have a, you know, a Golden Shell Whistle or something with a gray mane and pop all that value. But we'll see. Maybe it is just better. It is an odd minion, so this could work in the Moon Eater build. Moon Eater with Brand and Muckslinger, you would actually buff it up. So the fact that this is a non-type doesn't necessarily matter too much. All right, well, Yogg Saron, Hope's End. So the Wheel of Yogg is back, and man, they decided to make it a lot stronger. So this is now a tier 4 buddy, same as before, but instead of having to sell it to spin the wheel, it spins the wheel at the start of every turn. That is a huge buff, right? That's many, many more spins you're getting. And what I also really like is the golden one doesn't spin 2 wheels, it says double its effect. So that means you'll just get whatever you're getting, but twice. Because the wheel spin is a time killer. It wastes your turn. There were actually whole strategies in the previous buddy metas. The first iteration of this was a battle cry. So what would happen is you would have a golden brand and you would play this. You would actually spin the wheel 3 times. You would have like, spin the wheel, watch the animation. Hey, you're getting this. Here we go again. Spin the wheel, watch the, and 3 times of that. So you would do that and you would just sit there for 30, 40 seconds being like, I don't have a turn. So you actually had a strategy where you would end your turn by playing the Acolyte of Yogg Saron and then closing the client right before the combat. So you would just skip all those animations and go right into the next turn. That was actually somewhat necessary because getting 10 seconds or whatever per Yogg is just unacceptable, right? So super happy that they did this change where they probably also is a faster animation, I think, over these iterations. I think they sped it up, but also the fact that it's now, it doesn't have to spin twice. It just spins 1 time and you get twice the effect. Also, the wheel spins have changed. They've made the pyro buff much better. So instead of +4/+4, it's now +10/+10. So that's the one that has like the little surface area, so it doesn't have a lot of chance for the wheel to land there. But when you do hit it, you get +10/+10 on something, and then +10/+10 on something again, and it's this buff that just spins around, and until it goes on either your face or the bartender's face, it keeps bouncing around. So if you, assuming you have 7 minions and the tavern has like 5 minions, then you have 12 chances to continue pinging and only 2 to stop. So that's very cool, where you could get a lot of stats for that being +10/+10. So if you ever get that early and it bounces, let's say, you know, more than 4 times, you're getting like 50/50. That is just instant free leveling. So ridiculous outcome now, super high roll. Then they've also changed the one that switches your minions around. They've changed that so that now it just takes 2 of your minions and it gives those stats as a bonus to 2 other minions. So that's way better than just shuffling. That's way, way better. You basically no longer get screwed with this. It's just bonus. And sometimes you might not get as much bonus as you wanted, but you're just getting bonus. You have Mind Flayer goggles now that casts 4 random tavern spells instead of taking a shop. So again, if that's doubled, that's 8 tavern spells start of your turn. So pretty good. Daryl, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. This is garbage. All right, let's go next. It's better now because it gives you hats instead of stats. So when you sell the Haberdasher, you can still buff something else. But my God, this is just power creep has killed my boy Daryl. I remember 2 years ago, back in my day, you could actually just pick Daryl and stay on tier 3 and get a free top 2, but that's no longer the case. Daryl is just not a hero right now. I'm gonna speed through the ones that don't matter. This one just does not matter. It's not good. Whenever a dragon enters your warband or the tavern, gain 1/1. Who gives a shit? That is useless, especially when we have talked about these crazy things that you can do. Like, who gives a shit that you're getting +1/+1 on your guy every time you roll a dragon? All right, Nexus Lord. This, on the other hand, very good. So Malygos' hero power now will upgrade the tier instead of just changing it into a different one of the same tier. So that reminds us a little bit of the Torm buddy. This is much faster, but it's capped at a 6 instead of Torm can go to a 7. I still think I prefer this one slightly, but they're both good because they just accelerate how fast you can get your hands on a high tier minion, which is exactly what you want in Buddy. You want fast mana cheating, getting high tier minions early to get more value and just pop off. So gonna use this to try and get more money. So fantastic. Same thing here, Barroth's Apprentice. This is premium. So Lord Barroth is a very difficult hero to play. You need a lot of knowledge about certain curves, right? What curve did somebody take? Check out my curve video. Exclamation mark curves in the chat. So if you know what curve somebody takes, it's easier to gauge their strength. If you know the hero powers, it's much easier to say, well, this hero on this turn is probably a bit stronger. If you know all the minions that are in, if you know all the buddies that are in, if you can do all those things, this is super strong. Essentially what you do with Barroth is you just don't use any of the coins or as little of the coins as possible until you get your buddy. And then you just, right, you just go crazy. So what you will do is you'll get this on turn 5, maybe? Yeah, turn 5. 7 gold turn, you put the Barroth's Apprentice down, and then you'll just coin, go to 3, coin, go to 4, and then bet again, and then next turn you can maybe even go to 6. It's just coin, buff. So this is kind of bad later on because it's harder to win your bets when the sort of mid game is in full swing, and it's, you know, people can have crazy turns and it's hard to notice. You also wouldn't have banked that many coins, right, for getting the golden one, for instance. So usually this doesn't matter as much later on, but it's so good early on that it doesn't matter, right? So basically what happens with this is you use this, you power level to 6, and then you end up selling it, and you use your buddy when it's cheap, your second set of buddies, and then you'll just have one bet, and you just play your Barroth's Apprentice, coin, and sell it right away, and just continue your turn, and then next turn you do the same thing. If you won your bet, you'll just play the other one, coin, and sell it. So don't kill yourself trying to keep it. You can golden it if you're having a really good game, right? But that usually it's not the case. Usually you'll just end up selling it, make board space for real minions, and then just enjoy the fact that you're on tier 6 early. So super good. Then Lantern Tender is Rakanishu's buddy. So this might not seem insane because this buddy was notoriously just bad before, right? It used to say at the end of your turn, give a random friendly minion stats to your tavern tier. But let's see what changed. Now it says at the end of your turn, get 2 lantern lights, and you get 2 of them. So you can target the buff now, which is a game changer. You can throw this on Cleave, you can throw this on Deflecto, and you get twice as many stats. And it works with Drukhari, you'll get 4 lantern lights. Very, very good change. This makes Rakanishu much better. I would say this is now a hero that I can pick, where it's not my favorite or anything. It's nowhere near the Snake Eyes buddy or the Dr. Holiday buddy that gives you all the extra value, but it's solid, right? I can just put a bunch of lantern lights on my Deflecto. I can put a bunch of lantern lights on my Cleave. Maybe if I end up getting a Greymane and a Drukhari, I'm getting 8 lantern lights at the end of my turn, and I can just start my turn by going even, right? That's a thing. It now has options. You can actually high roll Rakanishu, whereas before you couldn't high roll Rakanishu. It was like, I can't. It's a Rakanishu. I can't do anything with this garbage. Whereas now there's actually options to pop off. So I'll definitely try him. Yeah, and the hero power got changed where it also gives you a spell. Huge upside for Peggy, for, you know, Nala, all the things we covered. Pleasantly surprised here. Rakanishu is now a hero in buddy meta. So for the next 2 months, Rakanishu is a hero. Yay! Awesome. Oh man, let's talk about the source of a lot of high rolls in buddy meta. Ticketus. Oh my god. So I'm not covering every single buddy that's in the game because that would take a very long time. I'm just covering all the ones that are in the patch notes. But I will probably at some point do like a buddy tier list or, you know, talk about all the important buddies in the meta. But right now, you know, this one's in the patch notes, so I'll talk about it. This breaks the game with Tess and Scabs because Tess and Scabs, they steal buddies from their either previous opponent or next opponent with their buddies. And my god, getting a bunch of ticket collectors is absolutely how you pop off. So yeah, there's a question in chat, like, isn't Ticketus power crept? Yes. So the first and the second prize are just, let's say, garbage. But the third tier prize is fine. That's good to get, and that's what matters, because when you have ticket collector, you just don't sell it until it's turn 8. So on turn 8, you'll have a tier 3 Dark Moon prize, and that's still fill your hand with bananas, which is still really good if you have Peggy and Cleave or anything that procs on spells or whatever. You can still just get, hey, now I'll get a 6-drop. You can still get steal the whole shop, I believe, right? So these are not prizes to be taken lightly. And you'll get tier 4 prizes with the next one, because the next one you're only going to pop on turn 12. And then on turn 12, you can still make all your minions cost 1 less. So now you're basically Millhouse, and your rolls still cost 1. So that's very easy to go infinite, right? If all your minions only cost 2, you have a Bran, you play something like a Shell Collector, you're now making money. You play something like a Murozond, Drakaseth, you name it, right? You're making money. If you have something like a Tethys, it's even easier to make money. So that one is a very good one to go infinite. You can still get Braggart to get a huge minion. You can still give a dog a bone, right? Give a Wind Fury and Divine Shield on a Cleave. So these turn 16 prizes, they are still very powerful. Or make a minion golden and pick it back up, right? Golden Brand. And those are the ones we care about. We don't care about the turn 1, turn 2 prizes. Now, it does mean that playing tickets as itself is harder because your first and your second prize are so, ugh, right? Usually it doesn't really matter compared to the spells and the power creep that's in. But still, this is still a good hero to take because this buddy is insane. Insane buddy. But the problem is you're enabling Scavs and Tess to steal this shit. Which is like, oh, when you pick Ticketus, those are the last 2 heroes you want to see. Like, you'd rather see a Gallywix, right? Just don't give me Scavs or Tess. And when you're Scavs or Tess, you're just sitting there like, give me a Phelan, give me a Ticketus, give me all that good value shit that I can steal. So yeah, it's pretty nasty. Vol'jin, Master Gathering. So Vol'jin used to be really good because the hero power would change the stats permanently. Now Vol'jin is a shell of his former self because it's just choose 2 minions, they gain each other's attack until next turn, which is playable. And with Shelemental in, which hasn't been removed, it's really good. But other than that, it's kind of a meme. Now the hero, the buddy says minions targeted by Spirit Swap also gain each other's health. So that's still only a temporary buff. So essentially, you're still a Shelemental one-trick. You would have to roll Shelemental, then have a big minion on your board, switch that into the shop, use the Shelemental, copy the stats. So in an Elemental Naga lobby, still very powerful because you kind of can just win the game by rolling that combo. Other than that, not great. So not super impressed by the buddy, but has this insane combo when you unlock it, right? If Shelemental's in, it's the nuts. Okay, so we have the Lich buddy, which is essentially a fancy rewinder, but it's not bad to have a fancy rewinder. This says whenever your hero takes damage, rewind it and gain stats equal to that amount. That is a bit of a rework from last time. Last time this was +2/+2 and you would have only 2 left because the initial one wasn't capped. It would just get +2/+2 and people would just play with Wrathweaver and just trigger. You would just have 5 Wrathweavers on your board and we just play 1 demon. It was like and the guy would just go like just grow. So they were like, that's too powerful. We need to cap that to 2 per turn. And now instead of giving it 2/2, they just said, okay, we're not going to cap it, but we're going to say that you're only gaining stats equal to that amount. So if you're taking a Wrathweaver damage, it's +1/+1 instead of 2/2, or then later on, well, I guess you're getting 2/2, so with the other one. But Bazaar Dealer's out, right? Bazaar Dealer's out. But still, I wonder now that it's no longer capped, if people are still going to do it with Wrathweaver. Because you're still gaining a reasonable amount, right? You're gaining stats equal to the amount and it's not capped. Oh, Percussionist is in. Oh, that's true. I don't know if this is going to be the tier 3 strategy again. We might see people, I think especially when you start, let's say you have a double Wrathweaver shop, I think you're still going to try it. Like just slam 2 Wrathweavers and then get this guy in and pop off. Definitely worth trying. Because this was absolutely a viable strat last time. Now there is power creep, of course, but still, it gets online so early that it's so safe. And those safe strategies are still very good for climbing. Okay, Deathwing got quite a big change. Instead of just being Lady Sinestra with +3 attack to everything, it's now just Sinestra. And now when a friendly minion gains attack, it gives +1 health. It gets +1 health permanently. That synergizes with your hero power, obviously. It synergizes with any kind of attack in combat gaining, like Promo Drake or something like that. And this means that it's permanent health. That's just solid. I don't think Deathwing is great in general, but it's like fine. You just take it. You get like Deflectobots on the board, and you play Sinestra, and you gain some stats, and you gain some health, and it's like, yeah, nothing crazy, but just fine. Then Greybow, which is also currently not in, due to a bug, I'm assuming. This is a very significant buff. Whenever a friendly taunt minion is attacked, give your minions +1 attack permanently. For those of you who don't know this, Greybow's hero power means that whenever you spawn a minion into combat, it spawns with taunt. The issue is that it's only half the minions because you're going to suicide your taunt minions as well. So, but still, you're gaining +1 attack permanently. I don't think this is giga broken. Like yesterday on the podcast, I had this like, oh man, it's like so good, and I still think it's good. But I don't think, you know, given what you can do in buddy meta, this isn't gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe they have a nerfed Greybow. But it's a lot of stuff early because we know how good that tier 5 tree is, right? Unforgiving Trend. So with how good this card is, having access to Wandering Trend early and pretty much guaranteed, because all you need to do is click your buddy button, it just makes me think that you start building these really good boards early on. Just because you can, you know, you imagine if you have one mech horse that dies, you're summoning 2 of those ponies with taunt, and whenever they get attacked, they summon another pony with taunt. Like you could even taunt a mech horse and play down a unit and put the mech horse a little further back so that you're not even attacking with them. They just keep getting attacked into over and over. But yeah, because people are going to build like infinite money boards, it's not like, oh, you just win the game because you have a Wandering Trend, but it's nice tempo, and then you can just do what you want. So solid. All the new minions. Baron's Brawler is a tier 3. You get a Death Rattle when you play this, right? So you get a Battle Cry, get a random Death Rattle minion. That's solid, because anytime your board isn't full, it's really nice to be able to fill it faster to take less damage. And then later on, you can just sell it and have extra gold. So really, really nice minion to buy early. Like when you go 3-on-3, 2 of these is perfect. Like you would love 2 of these after going 3-on-3. 4 minions on the board, 2 6s, that is not an irrelevant stat line, and then you get Death Rattles as well. So really nice. Baron's Conjurer, this is Death Rattle, get a Battle Cry minion instead of Battle Cry, get a Death Rattle. This being a tier 5 makes sense because it gives you value, right? Getting Battle Cries is much better than getting Death Rattles, later on at least. I don't think you get to keep this on your board for that long, but it's a nice early triple into this. So let's say you're on tier 4 and you're tripling. This is one of the cards you would want to see, I think, because it would give you value. And as we talked about it, getting early extra resources helps a lot. But I don't think you get to keep this very long because it's a no type. So Titus with this and just farm, it's kind of a little bit like Brand's Epic Egg that would just give you a lot of battle cries. And we know that that's good, right? Especially if you have a Brand on the board and the egg and a Titus, you get so much value. And then you just get to a point where you sell all of that, except the Brand, of course, and then you just pop up and you build a board. You can't really pick it up later because you're just going to die. It's a 6-2 with no tempo attached to it. So it's just pure value, which is good early and then bad late. Acid Atrocity, which is the exact opposite. This is 0 value, pure tempo. But I really think that there is a build here where you can play Acid Atrocity. So first of all, let's talk about the effect. It summons a 7/7 Golem, and that 7/7 gets another plus 7/7 for each friendly minion type that has died this combat. So I think this is going to be a build with Cultist, where you play a setup where you lose a few types. So let's say Mech Horse is a good example, where one Mech Horse will be 2 types that has died, because you'll lose a Beast and you'll lose a Mech. And then the Acid Atrocity will be another type for your next Acid Atrocity. Let's say you have Mech Horse, double Atrocity, Titus, double Cultist. You're essentially going to be summoning so much stuff where you'll summon a lot of these 7/7 golems that'll be 21s or 28s or, you know, more. And then when you have Cultist, the Cultist will be maxed because you'll have Acid Atrocities that are coming back. Oh, sorry, it's Arid. I like Acid more. Let's go Acid. Because this is an all type, and the Cultist would summon more of them, right? It would summon 2 back. Usually there's only 5 different types in any lobby, but because this is all, you could have your 5, and then the Atrocity itself would be 6, 7, 8, 9, right? All the way up to 10. So I do think there's some potential here. You can actually get this all the way up to plus 70, which is harder to do, right? There's no more Kangur, I believe, but you do have Cultist, and that's important because this is a demon, because it's all type. The Golem is no type. It has to be no type. If it's a type, it's broken. Because then it's so easy to turn this into plus 70-70. Seems underwhelming. Yeah, I really learned my lesson with Phalanx. Phalanx seemed underwhelming. I won't say this is as good as Phalanx because we had Chicken, right? And Kel'Thuzad and all that. Oh, Kel'Thuzad. Kel'Thuzad. Wait, how does this work with Kel'Thuzad? Died this combat. Oh, it sucks. Okay, good. Good talk. So it just summons a golem. When you look at the potential of what's available in a buddy meta, I get it, right? This doesn't look like insane, but it just depends on how fast you can get it rolling and just kill people with it. You can reborn it. Yeah, you can reborn it. Yeah, reborn, and then Cultist will bring it back with reborn. Oh my god. All right, so beast demon lobbies with this thing, and you just use the scarab on this shit. I really think you're gonna kill people with this early. Now the problem is, you can't really make goldens with this with Kel'Thuzad because it has a death rattle that summons a guy, and especially if you have a Titus on the board, you need to leave so many board spaces to be able to summon this and then resummon it back. So it's so hard to farm golden. This card seems way better than Phalanx was. The thing with Phalanx is you could get multiple golden Phalanxes on your board and then use the chicken to trigger all those golden Phalanxes at the start of combat. You could use Kel'Thuzad to permanently farm the stats from the Phalanx. You could use Kangor to resummon all the Phalanxes and get all the stats over and over and over and over. So whereas this guy, you're going to lose value because it's not a buff effect, it's a summon effect. So you're not going to be able to have like Golden Titus and get all these guys. Whereas with Golden Titus, you would actually get all your Phalanx value. With Golden Titus and Kel'Thuzad, you would get all these buffs. So Phalanx was better for sure. Well, likely. I need to see it in action, but that doesn't mean that this is bad because Phalanx was broken. Phalanx was released at +7/+7. Insane. That was nerfed to a 4/4 and it was strong at a 4/4, right? Like you would still play that with chicken. Like that shit was insane. It's not because this isn't better as Phalanx that it's bad. So yeah, this is probably the most interesting new minion that I really, you know, I want to try. I want to mess around with this to build some kind of ixxdeee comp. No, wow, this card. Primate. After a friendly death rattle minion dies, gain 1 gold next turn. That's good. We talked about it. It's a recurring theme. We want money. Give us more money. More money means faster tier, means faster level, means faster high tier minions. So more money good. That's one thing you can really bank on in this game is if there's a way to get more money early in the game, that's good. So what do you want with this? You want to essentially start out with some death rattles on your board so that if you triple into a primate or if you roll into a primate, you can actually play it and it'll do something. So you can actually think about it like, oh, it's a beast pirate lobby. Maybe I'll just take the skull on tier 2 because now I'll just have a death rattle. I'll take the mana saber on turn 1 because now I'll just have a death rattle, and so on. So you can keep this in your head and plan for it. Because I don't think you're going to keep the primate on your board to hold game. This is a little bit like Long John. It's a little bit like the quill board that generates money. At some point, you have to put minions on your board that win you the fight. So it's not necessarily something you can keep. But by then, the damage is done. By then, you have gotten enough money that you're so far ahead that it doesn't really matter that you have to sell it. So yeah, any card that has the ability to boost your economy early is very good. So yeah, Mech Horse with this is the nuts early. If you ever have this and triple into a gas coiler, my god. Whoa. N'Zoth. N'Zoth with a Mech Horse. 20 gold next turn. What? Oh my god. And you can even just reborn this thing, and when it dies, it goes right back to buffing, because it's not like it's Avenge 3 or something like that, right? It's just after a friendly death rattle minion dies. So after this reborns, it goes right back to buffing. It's not like you lost anything. It's like, okay, well, they gotta hit it twice. So, my god. Woo! That is gotta get nerfed. Alright, next. Talking about stuff that's gonna get nerfed, I think this is too good. So, Ghoul Akabra. Whenever you trigger a death rattle, give your minions 2/2 permanently. Let's talk about a very important word on this card. Trigger. This does not say whenever a death rattle minion dies, this says trigger. So why is that important? You can run Macaw with this thing. So you can run a golden Macaw with a golden... Let's just go big here, right? So what if you have a golden Macaw and a golden Titus? Golden Macaw says trigger a death rattle twice. then the Titus is 3 extra times. So you're getting 6 triggers. 6 triggers on a golden ghoul, right? So you can see how big this is going to get very quickly. And the Ghoul-a-Cabra does not say give your beasts 2/2, give your undead 2/2. No, it's minions. It's minions. So you can buff your Titus with this. And it's permanent. Permanent pumping on the Titus. You can run a Goldrin on your board, and then the Goldrin is going to buff the Ghoul as well. So less chance that it's going to die in the combat. You can run a Mech Horse. The Mech Horse dying triggers multiple times because you have the Titus on the board. So it's just going to go... Stats go up. Finding a golden Titus is hard. Yeah, but you could start with a regular Titus, right? So I'm just pointing it out, like the amount of stuff. Like a regular Titus with this is still very, very, very good. So one thing that can happen is that, again, buddy meta is so giga hyper value battlecry oriented that the game is just going to be too high capped for this to matter. Now I think between the Arid Atrocity and the Ghoul-a-Cabra, there is absolutely going to be room for these Death Rattle builds to just come in and kill people before they reach that hyper value stage where they have 10 cards in their hand at all time and just go crazy. I think the Death Rattle builds are going to kill a lot of the value players right now until they nerf this, like just make it less high tempo. So I'm definitely going to take that approach sort of on the first few days, or at least on day 1, and see if I'm really wrong or not. But I'm definitely going to lean a bit more into the Death Rattle shit, try to make like an Arid Atrocity build or try to make a Ghoul build and just pop off with that. But it's buddy meta, right? So you're absolutely still going to have some insane Battlecry games as well. Lock Prince, I'm just going to be honest, I don't really know. This says whenever it gains stats, add 2/2 to that amount, wherever this is. That feels weird to me. I think this is more like, let's say you buff the shop. This is now pretty good because it gets 2/2 to the shop buff and then gets better later. But I don't know. I will have to see how this card gets used to really be able to evaluate it properly. For a lot of the other cards, I got a pretty good idea of where I want to start off with the evaluation. But here, I don't really know. Bream Counter? Yeah, but this doesn't gain stats in the hand for playing Murlocs. So how is it gaining stats in the hand? Right? Oh, Scourfin? Yeah, but... I mean, do I really want to bother just for extra 2/2? My idea right now is that this is a little bit weird, hard to use, but it can be good tempo, right? It can be good in the right shop. It can be good tempo. I don't think you want to buy this like, oh, let me just buy a 2/2 and now hope I roll some synergy. But I think you roll this and you're like, oh, I could buy the Lock Prince here and double buff it immediately. Oh, that's good tempo. Let's do that. So I think that's more how you play this card. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, I must buy this because it's great later. I think you buy this when you actually have some synergy for it straight away. So gems, menagerie buffs, right? That kind of shit. Fairy Guildmother is the exact opposite. I think this is a buy early just because, you guessed it, more money. More money early is good. You get an extra Murloc in your hand. That can be TAD, it can be buffs, right? So usually pretty good. Cards that give you more money, pretty good. You'll have to sell this later on, or you'll just buff it and run a Drakari and keep it instead of going like Primal Fin Murkai. But Primal Fin Murkai is still better because Murkai and Bran are additional levers for this card. So with a Fairy Guildmother, you can't, you know, fill your hand with 10 Murlocs. But with a Bran Murkai Primal Fin, you can quite easily fill your hand with 10 Murlocs. So you can do this early and then transition into the other composition, for instance. Or you can just buy this when you're not Murlocs at all and just have some extra money and then sell it when you don't need it anymore. It's definitely not as good as the Primate. The Primate's way more money, but still, I mean, things that give you more money early are pretty good. Crow's Nest Sentry. So this is a card that gives you +3 health on all your other pirates for a Battlecry. So this really reminds me of the old tier 3 pirate, the Cannoneer that was Battlecry, give like I think 4 attack to all your pirates. That's basically this with 3 health. And we know from playing APM Pirates that that card was really good to buy with Bram. It was just felt so good to cycle. Now recently, the best way to play Pirates is to play as few Pirates as possible. It's just Tethys, that's it. By having Tethys, you just have better scaling if you play Rock, if you play Greymane. By having Crow's Nest Sentry as an option now, it probably makes it a little bit better to play something like Gunpowder Courier, buff your whole board, with attack and then have the Crow's Nest to do the AoE health buffing. And I don't think Balladist is out, right? So you still have Balladist as well on top of this. A little bit of a buff to the Mono Pirate archetype as opposed to just using Tethys for money. Then Clunker Junker. Woo! This thing looks great. Battlecry, choose a friendly mech, discover a mech to magnetize to it. That means that you're essentially getting a magnetic at a 1 gold discount because you can still sell the Clunker Junker afterwards. And you can also combo it with Bran, making it effectively free. Now, it's not really free because you can't sell a shitty magnetic. It'll get magnetized for sure. But it just seems like a really good card to get your Menace or to get more Accordatron. So super, super nice for that. Now, you do have Zilliax that you really just don't want to hit. Lullabot later on, not so good, right? There's a couple magnetics you don't want, but especially the Accordatron and the Menace are so, so, so nice. Taunting Deflecto might be awkward. I guess you can module it, right? Yeah, with Bran, module is a bit annoying, but still, it's going to be worth it. So I do think this is going to be a thing where you can run Bran, Golden Clunker Junker, and then just Draconic. Or trigger Battlecry, right? If you get trigger Battlecry or Draconic on this, there's just so much chance that you'll have a bunch of Accordatrons. It's a discover. Yeah, but not if you trigger it. Right, and that's how you would use this. It would randomly taunt shit. But it's really nice. Yeah. Is it just any magnetic? It has to be. Because if it's not, you could put Cleave on Deflectobot. And I'm just going to say those 2 words together. Cleave, Deflectobot. That's not okay. Okay. All right. So yeah. Looks great. Looks great, this card. 3 little Quillboar. Death Rattle, play 3 blood gems on your Quillboar. This doesn't seem that great. It can be a nice little tempo boost, but it doesn't say anywhere that the gems are permanent, so we shouldn't assume that they are. We know from experience that we had Gem Smuggler, which was a tier 4. Battlecry, give all your minions +1 gem permanently. So comparing that to something that only gives my Quillboar gems during the combat, sure, it's 3 gems, but still, I think on specific boards this is going to go hard, right? On specific boards where you have a good start, you start with Piper, you have maybe 1 Jazzer that you played, your board is, let's say, 5 or 6 Quillboar, you triple that into this, that's lots of power, lots of tempo, you go hard, you can level. I don't think this is a card that you really play a lot unless you have that start. So in that very specific position, sure, it's a lot of tempo that you can then use to level, but I much rather would just have, you know, Gem Smuggler because you can trigger that over and over. So yeah, it seems much better. Then we have a Duos minion, Jumping Jack. The first time this is sold, pass this instead. This seems really, really good because you can force this to farm triples, because essentially what you will do is you will both have a Jumping Jack on your board, and then whoever rolls the 3rd Jumping Jack, the teammate will sell his Jumping Jack, pass it to the person who's about to buy the triple, then has a golden Jumping Jack, maybe level first, right? Then play the golden Jumping Jack, then sell the golden Jumping Jack. The text on the golden Jumping Jack makes us assume that the person is getting a golden Jumping Jack when it gets passed in their hand, gets to play it again and another triple. Now, I don't know exactly if that's how it's going to work, because that seems really good, but the text on the card, there's no reason to assume it wouldn't work that way. So that seems like it's basically just, oh, here is a Cho'Gall hero power. We now both get a triple. Maybe it'll just be a regular version, fine, but right now there's nothing on the golden card that makes it say, you know, pass a plain version or anything like that. It just says the first time this is sold, pass it instead. So seems like you would just pass the golden card, which means you can get another discovery. So that's probably going to be, you know, unless it doesn't work that way, or unless they're going to nerf it or whatnot, that seems like a must-buy minion in duos because it's just going to give you discoveries. So I'm not really super excited about those things that are just like must-buys, because it just makes you feel bad when other people roll it and you don't. But anyways, seems super good. First time this game? Yeah, again, it doesn't say that. First time this is sold. So it's just like when you sell it the second time, it'll be gone. I don't think you'll get a gold for selling, but even if you don't, it's really good because it says pass it instead, not and pass it. Like the first time you sell this, sell it and pass it, right? Or get a gold and pass it, or what? It wouldn't say that, but it's just the wording instead makes me think the whole selling won't happen. Okay, then we have Begurgle coming back to be a tier 5, which makes sense. It did not feel right to have that as a tier 4 +2/+2. Just felt very awkward. So good to see that back to being a tier 5. And then Percussionist is back and changed. It's now a tier 4 again instead of a tier 5. So it went from a 4, then to a 5, back to a 4, mainly because I think demons are struggling right now, and a lot of the stuff that made this broken is kind of not really a thing anymore. But this might make Urzel like a meta pick, because now you can play Bran, Rewinder, Urzel to really farm a crap load of demons. We now have access to the Draconic, so you can make a Golden Percussionist, play Bran, Draconic, Rewinder, get a bunch of demons in your hand, have 2 Urzels, and just unload it. There was a question here, why is +3/+3 much better than 2/2? Well, it matters. It's kind of like asking why is +2/+2 much better than +1/+1, right? Not quite as much of an increase, but still, it's really nice. Also, it's just that it's blocking tier 4, right? You don't really want this early on 4. It makes a lot more sense on 5, because it's kind of too early, right? When you have this, you generally don't have Bran yet if it's on tier 4, and it's just, you know, it feels very out of place when it's on tier 4. Then here we have all the removed minions. A couple of these we already touched on. I'm not going to take forever on these, right? So Laborer, who cares? Pretty fringe. Sometimes you used it, probably not. Chimera, that's huge, right? Very, very, very meta influential, so making tier 4 weaker now. Because it's going to be buddy meta, the curves are already going to be different because people are spending money on their buddies. But yeah, less incentive to go to 4. Slither, who cares? Not a card. Hooktail, huge nerf for tier 3 mechs. You can now no longer stay on tier 3 and pump with Hooktail. Reef Explorer out, mainly used to pull chimeras, but can't be used to farm arid atrocities now. That's a big one, right? So you cannot use Reef Explorer to force arid atrocities. Probably one of the reasons they removed that, because it would be very, very, very easy to farm it, because you could play Bran, Reef Explorer, and all 5 types, and then just use Trigger Battle Cries on Reef Explorer, and you could have 2 golden arid atrocities in your hand pretty quickly, which is pretty dumb, right? So Long John out, huge nerf to tier 4, insanely good card, but we've seen some value engines replacing that. Very Guildmother, Primate, so tier 4 still looking good in general. Heedless Hoarder, yeah, sure. Sometimes really, really good, most of the time ignorable. Lich's Buddy gives you stats equal to the amount of damage you took, so Bazaar Dealer would have been great to just buy Golden Touches and all that. Gold Shell Warden out, nobody ever played this card, so poor Gold Shell. Gem Smuggler out, that's a huge nerf to Quills. Pretty much anytime people had an insane Quillbore setup, it was Golden Gem Smuggler that they kept triggering over and over again with either Draconic or with Murkai. So that is a huge nerf to Quills. And at high MMR, not really warranted. Quills were not good at high MMR. People were not playing a lot of Quillbore setups. And pretty much without exception, it was always Gem Smuggler if they were playing it. Faces out, I think that's good. These cards can do some really stupid things, especially on Varden. You just copy 5-drops in your shop. And then Death Stomper out. There's they need board space for Gula Cabra, right? So that makes sense. And that's just a much better version of this shit. Okay, then some returning minions. Percussionist, we already talked about that one. Silent Swimmer comes back, so get ready to see some Stealth Titus boards. Especially with, oh, that actually is great timing, right? Because when you play an Arid Atrocity build, you're going to have Stealth Cultist. So Stealth Cultist is a bit annoying because that means if they shoot through your taunts, they're going to be able to hit your Titus, and they can't miss into the Cultist because it's stealth. So when you can stealth your Titus, all of a sudden you can't get sniped anymore, and it makes these Death Rattle builds so much better. So when Nagas are in, these late game Titus builds get so much better because you just stealth your Titus. Like, you would actually just devote a board slot to this or just keep it the whole time. And especially when you're playing with Arid Atrocity, it's a Naga that died. Okay, my atrocities are now bigger. Cool. Pen Pal, great minion to get early. Basically, this reads Battlecry, get 2 gold. Which is disgusting. Disgusting. Alright, so Pen Pal is... I'm actually not really happy this is in because, man, it just creates such dumb boards where people got a buddy when they shouldn't have been able to get it. Like turn 3, double Pen Pal, or oh my god, like you're playing Zarella, you're just hero powering one Pen Pal, you're playing the other, you just you get your elephant next turn. It's, yeah, pretty dumb. So yeah, but super good early. All right, and I think we've reached the end then, guys. So man, that was quite the TED Talk. Hope you guys enjoyed that. But that's going to be the buddy patch. So huge patch. We'll be able to play this next week probably. There's no date announced, but I think the patch at the end said like, oh, keep a close eye or whatever. But usually they don't release it super far ahead, so they would never do it and be like, yeah, buddies next month. So it's very likely next week.